Hidden in the dense wetlands of the Everglades, the Seminoles could not be found. They wait in the muggy, alligator and snake-infested water for the perfect moment to strike. The Americans are getting sick, contracting malaria, and they are too weak to search for the Seminoles. They bring bloodhounds back from the States, and the bloodhounds cannot even sniff out the Seminoles in the dark swamps of the Florida Everglades. Osceola was the Seminoles' fearless leader. Because of him, the Seminole Wars were the longest and the costliest wars in the 1800s. The American government spent over $50 million, and over 2,000 soldiers were killed. Osceola wanted nothing but his land and his people to live in peace. In 1819, Spain gave Florida back to the U.S. government, which caused the Seminoles to lose 28 million acres of land. The U.S. pushed the Seminoles south to the muggy wetlands of Florida, only allowing them a small 4 million acres. The fresh resources and the planting fields were scarce, and it was almost impossible to live there. But the Seminoles were trying to make the best of it, basically minding their own business, until 1828 when Andrew Jackson made his presidency. Andrew Jackson saw the Native Americans were in the way and wanted to push them toward the west, toward Mississippi. Osceola was enraged and also feared that his beautiful wife, who was also half black, would be taken from him. Her name was Morning Dew. Payne's Landing Treaty was the contract that the Seminole chiefs were forced to sign, ignoring all of Osceola's cries. Osceola started a violent protest against the treaty. Osceola led men to attack the Americans in the swampy lands. The Seminole tribe had no fear and no mercy, ripping scalps off of the heads of the soldiers and nailing their scalps to the trees to intimidate their enemy, whooping and screaming and scaring the soldiers. Osceola would keep his attacks short, killing as many as possible, and then last minute running into the woods. Even though Osceola was on a winning streak, he still wanted to stop the bloodshed. Osceola knew that his men had only a few battles left in them and wouldn't be able to take any more. So Osceola tried to make peace with the Americans. Everybody was astonished when the Americans opened fire on Osceola's men with their weapons down. Osceola had no choice but to retreat. This was Osceola's first attempt in negotiating peace. His next attempt at peace was a trap. On October 27th, General Thomas Jessup waved a white flag symbolizing peace and surrender. When Osceola approached Jessup, thinking that it would be a peaceful meeting, soldiers surrounded Osceola and shackled his hands and feet. He was taken into captivity. What's interesting about his captivity, though, is he was held in the officers' quarters. That's how much Osceola was respected and liked by the soldiers, even though they were enemies. Osceola grew very weak since he became ill of malaria. He laid down and died on January 30th, 1838. He only survived 3 months and 10 days in captivity. The Seminole people still resisted and fought to keep their land after his death. It wasn't until 20 years later that the Seminole people were pushed out of Florida. Either they surrendered or they were killed. Osceola's body was decapitated and his head was embalmed by his medical caregiver, Dr. Frederick Whedon. He made a death mask of Osceola's face and took all of his belongings for money. Osceola's head was passed through many hands of physicians and scientists and finally stopped at a medical college in New York City. His head was burned in a building fire in 1865. Osceola is remembered as one of the greatest American generals in U.S. history. Osceola was buried with a full military funeral. He has a gravestone inscripted Patriot and Warrior. The gravestone split in two over the years, but is now on an exhibit today at Fort Moultrie, South Carolina. Osceola means black drink singer. During purification rites as a Seminole warrior, you have to drink a black liquid brewed from the leaves on a holly bush. He chose his name and changed his name. Now, here I have visual aids of Osceola. The first picture in the middle is a portrait of Osceola. Osceola, when he was in captivity, actually enjoyed sitting and spending hours talking to the portrait and the painters and getting his portrait painted. This picture here is Osceola's death mask. This is exactly what Osceola's face looked like the day after he was dead. This picture here is the original tombstone of Osceola, his gravesite. It says, Osceola, patriot and warrior, died at Fort Moultrie, January 30th, 1838. This is another portrait of Osceola. This is a portrait of General Thomas Jessup. Thomas Jessup is the general who captured him, and he died under General Thomas's watch. Today, Seminole tribes are in Oklahoma mostly, but they're also in Florida, in Tampa, and Immokalee. Seminole tribes have reservations pretty much all over Florida. Now you know a little more about Osceola. He was known as he is known as the greatest Seminole warrior of all time. He doesn't get as much recognition as Sitting Bull or any other Indian warriors, but he is the greatest Seminole warrior of his time during the Civil War. I just wanted to say thank you for coming to my speech, and everybody have a great night.